Holidays. Lovely, aren't they? But are they really a human right?
I'm not sure I would call it a human right. It seems more like a privilege.
As the number of tourists reaches 1 billion annually, we ask, should our right to a break be enshrined in law? We raise a glass to the good old British boozer and find out its chances of getting World Heritage status, and
tigers, killer whales and camels in their finest threads. That's coming up on Insider Guide.
Hello and welcome to Fast Track. I'm Fiona Foster. Now, I don't know how they arrived at this, but apparently 1 billion of us will have been on holiday in 2012. That figure, though, is heavily skewed in favour of planet Earth's richer residents. And that has triggered a discussion as to whether we should all have a right to travel. It is, after all, enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And as Rajan now reports, there's growing impetus for it to be enforced.
A typical chilly autumn morning in London. But not too cold to deter snap-happy tourists revelling in all the UK capital has to offer, and relishing the chance to take a break from the routine of their regular lives. In fact, they might think they're owed it, because Articles 13 and 24 of the 1948 Declaration of Human Rights uphold the right to travel and take a holiday.
Nobody in the past used to talk about the right for housing, the right for work, the right for education, the right for health. These are taken for granted now. We are now at a stage where the right to relax, the right to take time off, the right for vacation is entrusted in many, many declarations, human rights, international labor standards. So this has become something that a human being needs.
But for many people, this idea isn't necessarily easy to grasp.
I'm not sure I would call it a human right. It seems more like a privilege based on earned time and things, but I definitely wouldn't call it a right.
I would like to believe it, but I'm not sure it's really in practice.
Practice, not practical.
I'm quite sure of not.
So how do different countries compare when it comes to granting time off to take a holiday? Well, European countries come high on the list and Southeast Asian countries low down. The USA grants officially 0 statutory holidays. In practice, though, it turns out that Americans do have 15 days a year on average off.
If you work a minimum wage job in a gas station somewhere, you're not guaranteed to get holiday time off. You're not guaranteed to get paid time or any accrued holiday. It's solely based on whatever company you work for.
Aside from the human rights issue, for some time now there's been strong evidence of the economic case for travel and holidays. It runs like this. You get greater energy and creativity through rest and the stimulation of travel. There's more jobs to go around if people work less, and most crucially, they create opportunities for higher than normal consumer spending. But the strength of this economic case varies from country to country. And that's borne out by evidence of the effects of paid federal or bank holidays. Indonesia has 14 a year, Japan 15. The Philippines has 18, but top of the list is Argentina with 19. Here it's a case of more holidays boosting economic growth, but it's a trade-off. It works if the total gains to the tourism industry and its employees outweigh the loss to other sectors. In some countries, like the UK, with 10 bank holidays this year, that economic logic doesn't add up, at least according to the Centre for Economics and Business Research. They say 15% of the country, like shops and visitor attractions, benefit from extra public holidays, but 45% of the economy suffers. And that means that the UK loses an estimated $3.7 billion each year. This is the World Travel Market, arguably the biggest tourism industry event of the year. Essentially, it's one big sales pitch and a talking shop for national tourist boards and tourist companies. Now here, they're very much in favour of the human right to travel and tourism. But then they would be. It's their business. After all, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar global industry that provides more than 100 million jobs. In fact, more on some assessments. That's as many as 1 in 12 of all jobs.
Tourism today is the largest transfer of capital and fund, voluntary funds, from those that have it to those that don't, from north to south.
But should narrow economics be the only criteria for judging whether taking holidays is a good thing? This gathering at the World Travel Market is concerned with exactly that point. A scheme in the UK enables socially and economically disadvantaged families to take a break. They say it's win-win, with 80% of the families reporting higher levels of happiness and the local economies around the resorts gaining too. It's called social tourism.
Our holiday was the best thing ever.
Clearly for the families we're helping who are affected by mental health issues, unemployment, debt, getting a positive experience is setting them on a road to recovery, giving them hope for the future, gives them aspirations. A break away from home gives them a new perspective, new horizons, and they see their new opportunities to turn their lives around.
It's estimated 2 million families in the UK alone can't even afford a day trip to the seaside. And in fact, the lack of holidays is now one measure of poverty in the UK. Tourism for All organises holidays for 100,000 people a year in the Flanders region of Belgium by negotiating cut-price, last-minute deals with the private sector. They believe going abroad is important.
If we in the future like to be living together, then you need to travel, you need to see other people, you need to take contact with other people. Otherwise we can't live in a global community. So I think in the future it will be more and more important to see also the social fact of tourism. And Tourism for All think this model can be replicated around the world. And the onus now is on those who preach the message of tourism as a human right to ensure it's enjoyed by all people of all incomes all around the world.
Rajan reporting from the bustle of the World Travel Market. And that date, the 13th of December, has been chosen as the symbolic arrival day of the 1 billionth tourist. Though, of course, it's impossible to say when and where that person might arrive. So, what do you think? Is it a human right to have an away break? Or is it a luxury that only those with the means should be able to enjoy? Do let us know. Our email address is fasttrack@bbc.com. And that's the address some of you used following our recent report asking whether it was safe to use your electronic device on takeoff and landing.
So the chances of a device with an airplane mode switched on causing any problems with navigational equipment or other avionics on an aeroplane would be how likely?
I would say almost nil.
Almost nil?
I would say almost no chance.
Well, it's safe to say many of you don't have a problem flouting the rules from time to time. Aggie from Cape Town writes,
I've been on so many flights, I just don't believe everyone switches off their devices. Many have them in bags or luggage and just don't bother. Others don't understand the announcements and phones remain on throughout the flight. It's impossible to control unless each and every phone is physically checked.
But as our scientist, Professor Izzat Darwazi, pointed out, it's also important for passengers to take notice of safety announcements during takeoff and landing. A point reiterated by Jackie, who contacted us from the Bahamas.
As cabin crew for over 23 years, I'd like to point out that the main reason electronic equipment should be off is more about passengers' awareness of what's going on around them at these critical times of a flight. I feel strongly enough to send this message as I was shouting at the screen during the programme.
And Jacob from Maryland in the US forcefully agrees.
Whose risk is this? And is it really worth a few more seconds of diddling around on your phone? Please, people, shut off your damn toys and let the plane make its landing safely. This is not a democracy. This is an issue of safety. It's a small inconvenience.
Well, thank you for all your emails. We do have fun reading them, and we'll give you the address again at the end of the programme. Time now, though, to look at what else has been making news in the world of travel this week.
If you're heading to Italy over the next few days, you might want to check your travel plans and the weather forecast, as parts of the country's road and rail network have been closed because of flooding. Heavy rainfall means that several rivers have burst their banks across the tourist regions of Tuscany and Umbria. You'll also find more of Venice underwater than usual, thanks to the flood. Sensation-seeking travellers visiting New York have been accused of gawking by locals who were affected by Superstorm Sandy, many of whom say they're now losing patience with snap-happy tourists trawling through their neighbourhoods, taking photographs of the debris. Thousands of homes and businesses were left damaged by the storm at the end of October. And if you enjoy photographing wildlife rather than disaster zones, then you'll be pleased to hear that one of the world's most endangered species is now slightly less endangered. A census of mountain gorillas in Bwindi National Park, which straddles the borders of Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, has found that their numbers have gone up by 17%.
That's it for now, but do stay with us because coming up after the break, Michelle's back finding out why Doha, Marrakesh and Lyon are all places to go in the coming weeks. And if French belfries and Dutch canals have it, why shouldn't Britain's pubs be given UNESCO World Heritage status?
All Portuguese want to go to a pub, an English pub, and have some fun.
I'm Michelle Yanachan, and this is Fast Track's Insider Guide with my top travel tips from around the world. A temporary ban on tourism to India's tiger reserves has been lifted ahead of the start of the peak tourism season. Tourists will once again be allowed to visit many of the key tiger habitats in the national parks, which have been closed due to conservation concerns. Tourism will still be limited in core areas of the reserves, which is hoped will allow for only responsible tourism practices. Now marks the beginning of the best time of year to come to India for wildlife. The scenery is lush and green and excellent for bird spotters. In a few months, the temperatures rise, conditions are drier, and there's less water, meaning it's easier to track tigers. Also in India at this time is the Pushkar Camel Festival, a convergence of livestock, nomads, farmers and traders from all over Rajasthan to the edge of the Thar Desert. Thousands of camels are bought and sold, as well as decorated, shaved, paraded and raced. In France, the Lyon Festival of Lights begins December 6th for 4 days, drawing millions of visitors to see the lighting creations of designers, artists, architects, videographers and lighting engineers. This year, the festival will focus on the history of light, transforming the city and highlighting its architectural heritage and urban spaces. Light is also being revered in Thailand this month. During the Loy Krathong festival, locals decorate banana leaf floats with flowers, candles and incense sticks, which are lit and set adrift upon waterways. They'll be marking the festival on and around November 28th. Is the end of the world nigh? In Mexico, some are fearfully looking ahead to December 21st, when the ancient calendar of the Mayans comes to an end. Others say the date merely represents the start of a new cycle, or perhaps a change of fortunes. Either way, it's a notable moment for the Mayan people, whose heritage can be found across Central America. In Florida, in the USA, Art Basel Miami Beach takes place December 6th through 9th, a must-stop on the global art circuit. Galleries will be showcasing works by thousands of 20th and 21st century artists. There'll be special sections featuring young galleries, performance art, public art projects and video art. December is a thrilling month to visit the Falkland Islands, with some of the mildest temperatures the archipelago experiences. Magellanic penguins and black-browed albatross both have chicks at this time of year. Killer whales can also be spotted on the shore of Sea Lion Island, as elephant pups and sea lion pups take their first waddle. The island also hosts hundreds of species of birds, as well as whales and dolphins around the coastline. I'm just off to Marrakesh, a city gearing up for the 12th International Film Festival, which will in part take over the city's famed square, Jemaat El Fna. This year, the event pays tribute to Hindi cinema, as well as the best of Moroccan feature films and short film. The festival runs from November 30th to December 8th. Thanks for checking in with my Insider Guide. Write to me with news of anything special happening in your part of the world at fasttrack@bbc.com. Until next time, happy travelling.
Michelle Yanachan giving us plenty to chew on over the next month or so. And we'll end today's programme in the pubs of London. There's something of a cultural institution here, the social hub of every town and village. But is that enough to get them recognised by UNESCO? We gave David Lewis enough money for half a pint of mild and sent him to find out more.
2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, please. 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, please.
Certain things have over time become synonymous with London. There's the black taxis, Big Ben, the red double-decker buses. Of course, the constant drizzle and the typical London pub. But are London's public houses actually under threat?
I'll have 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, please. I'll have some pickled onions and a little bit of cheese, please. Thank you.
Drinking dens across the capital have been shutting down at an alarming rate in recent years. Pubs are struggling to compete with the cheaper booze sold in supermarkets, whilst property developers are constantly circling, ready to transform the old-fashioned pub into the latest wine bar. The economic downturn has hit the industry hard. Last year, London was losing, on average, almost a pub a day. Tourists also have an important role to play in this story. London welcomed 15 million overseas visitors in 2011, many of whom would have knocked back drinks at one of the city's many watering holes.
I've got all the right money and all that, please. Thank you.
The traditional London pub. Where better to come with friends or colleagues and discuss the latest news, politics, current affairs, okay, often the football, over a warm beer and some roasted peanuts. But pubs are vulnerable. Now, one set of students, traditionally no strangers to the occasional tipple themselves, are taking it into their own hands to challenge the decline. The group at London's Kingston University are preparing to lodge a bid to UNESCO for heritage status to protect the humble London pub. I met up with Dan Rosbottom, head of the university's architecture school in, well, you can probably guess where, to find out how he thinks UNESCO protection could help.
You'd normally expect it to be thinking about preserving Stonehenge or the city of Bath or the pyramids. But UNESCO also applies to things which are to do with the cultural character of a place. And our hope now is that we can think about them rather in the way that UNESCO thought about something like the Viennese Coffee House as something that's so intrinsic to the way that Londoners live that it ought to be protected as a fundamental part of the character of London.
And it's difficult to deny that pubs are as much a part of London as the crown jewels and the River Thames. The humble boozer has existed in the city, in one guise or another, for almost 1,000 years. In my final pub outing of the day, I promise, I had a drink with stand-up comic and beer expert Tom Sandon. I asked him if he thought pubs were deserving of UNESCO heritage status.
We're in the Lamb Flag in London here. This pub has been here for centuries. Some of the pubs in London, you've had great writers like Hemingway or Orwell who used to drink in the Dog and Duck round in Soho. I mean, we're in here this afternoon and it's really buzzing. It's not like people aren't coming to the pub. They are getting out there. They're enjoying a drink.
Tom isn't alone in his defence of the capital's humble boozers. Whichever pub you go into in London, you're never short of meeting drinkers with an opinion or two. Or 3 or 4. Would they really miss the city's pubs if they were gone?
All Portuguese want to go to a pub, an English pub, and have some fun.
I come here not just for this, but so much for this because it's very famous, because I like beer.
The core of London is about its culture. The culture of London is about its pubs. It's simple.
So I finished my day, where else but with my crossword in the pub. This place used to be a favourite haunt of Charles Dickens, no less. It's clear from the tourists and Londoners I've spoken to today, there's a real appetite to sustain London's traditional pub culture. The future, though, well, that's not yet written. So, for me, I'm just left with 7 down. Be something, something, R.
David Lewis finding the solution at the bottom of a glass. And that's it for now. Do join us again next week, though, when we'll be having a look at the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy and asking whether travel insurance is always worth the paper it's printed on. In the meantime, our website is at bbc.com/fasttrack, and there's all sorts on there on all our trips this year. And don't forget, we've also got Facebook, Twitter and Pinterest accounts as well. But for now, from me, Fiona Foster, and the rest of the Fast Track team here at London's Covent Garden, bye-bye.